Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Happy holidays. Happy Silent Night, Deadly Night celebration. That is why we are here.
Yes, we thought with all the Silent Night, Deadly Night fun that's going on in Stop the Killer, we should talk about it and why this movie made such an impression, and to see if anybody, hey Ann, and see if you've read the book. Oh my God! Please tell us you've read the book and played the games. The hex decks are going out. I'm getting tagged, and so we just wanted to sort of talk about Silent Night, Deadly Night. So we're starting to see people coming in.
Yep.
Hey, Zach.
What's up, Zach?
Now, if anybody wants to join the video conversation, Nate can. Would you mind signing it, Nate, or should I?
Yeah, I think I have it.
Okay, so not yet, but like if you want, just let us know, and we'll pop you on. And if you want to talk about something about Silent Night, Deadly Night, if you have a question about the games or the book, Armando is going to be coming on. Armando Munoz, who wrote the novel, will be on in about 5 minutes. Did you see what? And do we need to talk about Sister Margaret? Yes. That's bonkers. So Armando is more than happy. Now, if there's anybody on the call, or not on the call, on the stream that hasn't read the book, we don't really know how to regulate that, because if somebody has read the book and is asking a question about something, that could be considered a spoiler. So we're kind of leaving it up to you. But if you have questions, that's the point. Armando wants to talk about the book, and we just had a really cool book signing yesterday at Dark Delicacies, which is a bookstore in Burbank. We had all these people showing up to sign the book, and Dark Delicacies, actually, Robert Brian Wilson, who plays Billy in the movie, stopped in last week. Just stopped in to see the store, and Sue, who owns the shop with her husband Del, was opening the box of books that Stop the Killer had sent her, and she gave him a copy of it. And he autographed like 20 of them. She just said, "Do you mind autographing them?" So I don't even have an autographed copy by Billy. So about 20 people from Dark Dells are being shipped books that have his signature on it. So there's just been a lot of like excitement around it. The reviews that have come out are incredible. So go read the Fangoria reviews. Go read what's the other one? Bloody Disgusting. Rue Morgue is putting out a review, and it's rave reviews. And we're so proud of the book. And Armando did an incredible job. So he's here to answer questions and talk about it. Any questions that you might have. And of course, us at Stop the Killer, we'd also like to hear about the games. If you have any questions about the hex deck or the board game, let us know. Oh, yes, I'm reading all these comments. Cool. Well, Nate, what is it about Silent Night, Deadly Night that you love so much? We've talked about it a million times, but what is it? What is the most your favorite thing about Silent Night, Deadly Night?
I think probably the first thing that comes to mind, not just talking specifically about what I like about the movie itself, but the first thing that always comes to my mind when I hear the words Silent Night, Deadly Night is kind of the mystique that surrounded it, kind of the bad publicity, and it just kind of has always had this reputation of like this horrible thing that never should have happened, and nobody should see it, and right. Every copy should be destroyed. That's what I always think about. I always think about like how many people it pissed off.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
as history has proven, all that ever does is makes more people want to see it.
Sure.
And, at the end of the day, I mean, did the movie make as much of the box office that it could have? No. But are we talking about it today because that happened? Probably.
Yeah. I remember now that you say that, I remember you telling me a couple of years ago that you would go to the video store and you would see that big chunky box like on the VHS box, because it wasn't in one of those small regular ones. It was like
it was like a box that like a porno film would come in,
right? And I remember you going like when you rented it or somehow you had it in your backpack and you're like, "What have I done?" Like this.
Exactly.
I can't believe I'm going to watch this movie.
I had always seen it when I was so little. And the first thing that I remember at the video store as a kid, I was probably like 6. I remember like sliding the thing over to look at the back, and there were no pictures on it. It was just words. And I was like, oh my God, it's so bad they can't even put a picture from the movie on it. And it just always stuck out to the point that anytime I would go to rent a movie, I would go straight to the horror section, and it was just there. It was like light was beaming down on it. Like there was this thing, and it was like, someday I'll get to you.
Right.
And finally, when I had enough whatever in me to finally rent it, I remember renting it, and they handed me the tape, and I put it in my book bag. It was right after school, and I started walking home, and the whole walk home, I was like, what have I done? Like, am I ready for this? Should I have done that? I feel like I'm
a bad person.
Yeah, right. I feel like I broke the law.
Well, it's that kind of movie, you know. And also, if you don't know, if you're here with us, it opened opposite the movie opened opposite of Nightmare on Elm Street, and it outperformed a Nightmare on Elm Street, which to me is probably because all of the negative buzz around. I mean, buzz, in the entertainment industry, buzz is a good thing, whether it's bad or good, you know. So I think this movie, it had like success written all over it, but unfortunately it didn't come until a lot later. Yep. Because it was pulled. It wasn't in theaters, I think, more than 10 days, something like that. And I really do think it would have had the longevity and the quality sequels that any of the major franchises had. It just didn't, it kind of got lost. And so audiences, like, I still meet people who've never seen it. They're like, Silent Night, Deadly Night, I've heard of that movie. These are horror fans, you know? And so I'm glad it's being rediscovered now through the games and certainly through the book. You know, if you read the book, it's Silent Night, but it's so much more. But I think that's kind of what I love about it, is like, it was this little movie, a studio put it out. They saw the value in it because of Friday the 13th and Halloween and everything. And it just kind of fell on its face because of the backlash. But it goes to show you that, you know, a good movie will survive and find an audience. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people tell me they hate it. They're like, oh, what a crappy movie it is, or whatever. And I totally disagree. Yeah, it's got issues with its, like, you know, I mean, the director, Charles Sellier, was a good director, but, you know, Nate and I are in touch with the executive producers of the original film, and they say they've heard through the years that there's no sense of place, right? It's like Billy breaks out of this toy store and you really don't know where he is in the town, and it's just kind of sort of cobbled together, but I wouldn't change a frame of it, you know. And I think my favorite character is Grandpa. Of course, I mean, Grandpa is like incredible. And you know, I've said, like, I think that soliloquy or whatever, his little speech to Billy, is one of the best scenes in horror. Mm-hmm. I just really do. I mean, I could watch it over and over because the acting is so incredible in it. You believe every word of this maniac, and you don't know what's really going on. You know, like, is he nuts? Is he fooling with Billy? You don't know, but it's just this like lightning, and you never see him again in the movie, which is also a flaw. Kristen is saying, I love it because it's trauma horror before trauma horror was a real thing. Trauma horror is a huge subgenre now, but Silent Night in particular is a landmark. Absolutely. That's another thing. When I was younger, I just, you know, bought this idea that he thinks he's Santa. But when I was watching the movie a couple years ago, that's hard to do in a movie where you're like, why does he believe? And I want your opinion, Nate, and anyone else who's watching. And again, if you want to join the video, let us know, and Nate will send you the link where you can actually pop on, and everyone will see and hear you, and we'd love to talk to you. Like, why does he step into the role of Santa, right? He's been told he's naughty. He believes he's naughty. He's, you know, his visions of Grandpa and Mother Superior and the killer Santa are all in his head. But then at some point he morphs into Santa. And I don't think it's very clear in the movie. Mm-hmm. In the book, it's very clear, for sure. Armando tackled that. And I think it's brilliant in the book. But what do you think, Nate? Like, what do you think is happening in his head when he's in the toy store and become Santa?
The way that I always interpreted it in the movie is it's almost a form of like submission. Like, he's submitting to this thing that he's been terrified of, and, you know, has been this bad thing in his life, like, forever. Yeah. And it's like, he's kind of just giving himself. It's like, you know, he's just doing it and he's submitting to it. It's almost like he's given up. Like he's just like, okay, well, they need me to be Santa. I'm gonna put it on. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And we know what happens.
It's just gotten to be too much, and he just sort of steps into that role or something. Because at that moment, he's also there's a song playing. Santa's watching.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's. So he's hearing this and people singing Santa's watching, whatever. So he's hearing this song. He's watching people do naughty things. Everywhere he's turning, people are drinking, which is naughty. They're about to have sex, which is naughty. He's hearing Santa's watching and I just think it's just too much and he caves. Like if he had just held his sanity together in that party, like nobody would have died that night, but he just sort of cracks. And so it's a beautiful moment. And then it was fun to see him go on his killing spree. I would love to have the ending to go on a little longer. Like I would have loved to have killed like more people and Armando takes care of that. Is Armando in the waiting room or anything? Let me see.
He's ready. I was just going to say,
let's bring him on.
We've got the man of the hour.
All right.
Here we go. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
There's the sicko. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry. Hey, Armando.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. We just saw each other, everybody. We saw each other yesterday at the signing at Dark Delicacies, and that was a lot of fun. Did you have fun, Armando?
Oh, always. Always.
Yeah.
It's great to meet and talk to people about, the project and Silent Night, Deadly Night fans. They love it, and I love that. I'm with you guys.
We have somebody watching named Anne who said, okay, we need to talk about Sister Margaret, dudes. And I was like, are you sure you want to talk about Sister Margaret?
On spoilers on this, there are certain things that the reviews are revealing, certain surprises. But there are so many things in the book. It's just impossible to reveal all the surprises in store. And I don't mind talking about, a number of things in detail, but with Sister Margaret, I'm just going to leave it at her transgressions. Like somehow all of the reviews have kind of honed in on Sister Margaret and what she does.
Yeah.
And yet they've all held it back. And they only hint at it. And I want to kind of do the same here. So I don't mind talking about the characters or anything, just on a few specific details.
Yeah.
I love the element of surprise because nobody can see it, coming. And I think it's more fun.
Sure.
To just shock you all.
And if somebody wants to, if everyone watching, if somebody wants to address like something very specific that's a spoiler, probably don't do that. But like we can certainly Armando can talk about his approach and what to expect, and we all cinephiles. We've seen a million movies and talked about them. We know how to not spoil something. So, so Anne said, I won't spoil it, but my favorite quote is on the last page about what wasn't on the Captain bingo card. Oh man.
Oh, that's great to hear that it's getting a reaction.
It's
I love the ending. The ending of this. I believe this is a very honest adaptation. Like I really tried to stay within the heart of it. But I think there were areas to expand upon, and if you really look at the characters and put them in the situation, you realize there's a lot more going on here. And when you put a microscope on it, you realize, oh my god, this is really tragic and sick and shocking. And that was kind of the fun. But like I had no idea that the final chapter would become so powerful, that where it ended up in the book, it's one of my favorite things. Like writing that chapter was one of the most exciting things ever. I was crying, I was screaming, and I was cackling with mad laughter. Like I had so many emotions, just an absolute roller coaster of investment and reaction. I was reacting to it because we haven't seen it like this before,
Yeah.
or so in detail. And I couldn't, nobody maybe was more shocked than me. So I don't know if anyone will have as visceral reaction as I
Yeah.
did. It was like I was there, I was living that scene. It was incredible. And I think the experience of reading it and having all those feelings and emotions and just everything hit in that final chapter the way it does, it's such a roller coaster. It almost gives you whiplash how much it is
Yeah.
yanking you and twisting you in different
Yeah.
directions. So
What
fun.
was
I
it
mean,
about?
Silent
What
Night,
was
Deadly
the,
Night.
well, see, the great thing about like this is this is the second book we're working with Armando on, and he's working on the third one, which is Happy Birthday to Me, and a fourth one is coming after, which we can't say right now. Don't mess it up, Armando. Don't let it slip.
No, I won't let that slip.
All right.
No reveals on that tonight.
But I remember when I first came to you and said, "How about doing a novel on Silent Night, Deadly Night?" You were like, had such an immediate love for it. What is the one or two things that you love the most about Silent Night, Deadly Night? Why did it make such an impression on you?
It always did. Since when I first saw it on VHS in 1986, I missed it theatrically. It did not play in my small town during those 2 weeks,
Right.
but A Nightmare on Elm Street did, and I actually did get to see that one when it opened. But Silent Night, Deadly Night bypassed me. But I was only just getting into the genre at the
I remember
time.
that. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
85 on, I saw every horror film that came out theatrically. And so when Silent Night, Deadly Night finally came out on cassette, I was eager to see what all the hype was about.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. It totally spoke to me. It was freaky, it was shocking, it was transgressive. It made me feel yucky at times. Like, it had an impact. It was intense for a kid.
Yeah.
It is freaky, and even to this day, I can still tap into that original reaction that I had.
Yeah.
But there was more to it than that. There's a whole kind of middle finger approach that the movie has to everything that's acceptable and proper. It is really a middle finger to the conservatism of the 1980s. And even in 1984, I recognized that. And I was very much on the same level of,
Yeah.
rejecting. I was old enough to realize, okay, religion's not for me. I'm not going to church anymore, and I'm going to stand firm on that, and things like that. And
Interesting.
And then you see this attitude that this movie has, which is so unique for its time. It was talking about church abuse decades before it became a headline issue and became the subject matter of Oscar-winning movies. Silent Night, Deadly Night was doing it decades earlier and saying, pulling back the curtain and saying, oh, look, this institution is not good for these characters and it's going to fail them. And so I always, I totally understood where the movie was coming from, just innately from the first time I saw it. So I could be freaked out by it and have fun with it, but also at the same time I realized, oh, there's something deep here. This one kind of speaks to me.
Yeah.
And so it always has had that connection and that voice. So yeah, this was a dream job, to have presented. Like, I knew right away, I was like, I know Silent Night, Deadly Night. I was there. I know how to feel that. I can tap into all of my original reactions and emotions and and even my perceptions have changed over the years because watching it as an adult for the first time.
Right.
On the big screen, close to 20 years after its release, was another revelation. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this movie is hilarious. It's so much more funny and potent with an audience.
Yeah.
And at the same time, more terrifying. Like, Grandpa made me laugh so hard in the theater that I wept. Like, I cried, but it was actually fear because I believed him so authentically. And even as an adult and seeing how sadistic and horrible what he was doing was, those might have been frightened tears as well as the laughter. Like, what kind of like great
It's so
reaction?
it's such an outrageous little scene they give him, and he's just sit there and watch it. Like, don't do anything. Don't look at your phone. Like, everybody, just watch that scene. Like, it's genius what this guy does. I mean, he sits back and he's like chewing on his hand, and he's like he's just so crazy. But like you ever see actors, they're like playing crazy, and you're like, oh, it doesn't work. But like for a minute there, not a minute, the whole time you think, this guy's got to be really really crazy. And so it's like, Anthony Perkins, he just happens to have that exact persona and delivery where it's just perfect. And that's how the movie opens, like, it's like, my God, if that's what you're getting in the first 5 minutes, like it, and also I have to say something about that little kid. He's so like angelic and just so cute, and the little face, and like he's just like this little kid, and you just want to protect him. And so they cast everybody so perfectly. I like movies about people, like, so I mean, I love Halloween is my favorite movie, and I know there's this supernatural spin to him, but he's still a man, so I think that's what I love most about Silent Night Deadly Night, is that it's not some supernatural being, it's a man with an axe, and you do really genuinely feel bad for him when he snaps, because he can't hold it together. So yeah, so it's just, it was so different. So like when that movie came out, it was in the wake of all the success of Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street had just opened. So it did something different, and I think that's why it stood the test of time. The rest of what do you guys think of the rest of the movies? I mean, just in general. I mean, everybody loves part 2 with Garbage Day and everything, but is there any one of the sequels that you guys like that you could point out and say, well, there's one of them that I liked?
Well, personally, so if I watch part 2, I usually end up fast forwarding to like the new stuff at the last like 40 minutes, just because if I want to watch part 1, I'm going to put in part 1. Yeah. I don't need to watch like, the greatest hits of part 1 for an hour before the new. So part 2, I do like a lot for comedic reasons. It's just hilarious to me. I think it's one of the most unintentionally funny horror movies of all time. The third one, I can't really watch it. It's really bad. The fourth one, I think, is even worse, in my opinion. It barely has anything to do with Christmas. It's very obvious that, especially with the fourth one, that they kind of just had this idea for this movie, and they were like, oh, let's call it Silent Night Deadly Night 4. I do like the fifth one, though. I enjoy the fifth one.
Yep, and there's in our chat, Zach is saying the same thing, and Brian, they're like, the fifth one, with like, yeah, the fifth one is fun, and the fact that Mickey Rooney was in it, and I know that Mickey Rooney was like, he was one of the people that was protesting the first movie, and he's like, how dare they make a movie like this? Well, by part 5, he's like starring in it, and that's awesome. But there's a freaky ending to that as well. You're like, whoa, like it delivers a punch of an ending. What about you, Armando? And is it just the first one? Are you a purist, or
the first one's the only one I love?
Yeah.
And I can get some guilty pleasure out of the second one at times, and the fifth one. I would say those are the 2 of the final 4 films that I can kind of tolerate. And Silent Night that came later, I can't see any connection at all, so I really don't connect it.
Yeah, it's turned into like an anthology series. It was just like, it's the title, but you don't have to, they're standalones. Every year I watch all 5 of them, but I have to be honest, this year it's like 1, 2, and 5. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to watch 3 and 4. Just, I look, if everyone watching likes part 3 and 4, that's fine. That's good. There's no like right or wrong, but like part 4 kind of is like, why did they call it Silent Night Deadly Night? It's one of it's disappointing, but.
And there's other killer Santa movies I do like, and even some that aren't so good. Like To All a Good Night.
Mm-hmm.
Like I probably play that around 3 or 4 times around every Christmas season. It's a difficult movie to follow, you know, and it's so weird in its own universe and amateurish at times, and yet I just want to hear that music. It's my Christmas music. You know, people put on, you know, Christmas music radio channels. I put on To All a Good Night or Silent Night, Deadly Night or Christmas Evil, and I want to hear those scores.
Yeah.
And just have that. Those are my Christmas jingles, the murder jingles.
Did you listen when you were writing the Silent Night, Deadly Night novel? Did you listen to what did you do to, I know like for you're writing Happy Birthday to Me and you said that you've been lighting this birthday candle and I think it's amazing. And what'd you do for Silent Night, Deadly Night?
I had a gingerbread candle. It's always good to have the scent of the holiday.
Sure.
It's good to put up the poster for it. Yeah. Like I love to write looking at the iconic poster image.
Oh, nice.
That's an interesting detail. Like I did that with my Bloody Valentine. So every time I looked up from the screen, I saw that miner's eyes in the dark.
Right.
From the one sheet staring at me.
Right.
Like it's always there. Like I always want to have those sensory things there.
Yeah.
You know, and then I live in that holiday.
Yeah.
You know, for as long as I write the book.
Yeah.
I'm totally plugged in. It doesn't matter what time of year.
Yeah.
But of course, now that I do live, you know, I've been doing multiple holiday set books in a row.
Yeah.
Each holiday, I'm celebrating 2 holidays. And it's a weird thing. So,
right.
You know, it's Christmas time, but I'm thinking about birthdays. But, you know, when it was Halloween time, I was thinking about Christmas. And when it was Valentine's, like, my holidays are off in my head, but I'm experiencing real ones. And so it's this really weird thing where I almost want to put up my Christmas and Valentine decorations at the same time.
Nothing wrong
Why
with
can't
that.
I celebrate all the holidays all the time? You know, Halloween is every day anyway. So every day is Christmas. Every day is Valentine's Day. Every day is Halloween. Like, let's just, you know, we can have them anytime. We can celebrate them anytime.
Absolutely.
And we do with these movies. We watch them.
Yeah.
Not seasonal.
Yeah.
You know, so.
So Brian's asking, can we talk about the controversy for this film? And again, if anybody wants to join the video, just type it and you can hop on and talk with us. Yeah, the controversy I think was key to its success. It was key to its later success. It killed it back when the movie came out. I mean, that's like you can kind of look at it like, well, they won. This Mothers Against whatever the groups were, these advocacy groups and everything, just retaliating against it. I think generally it was showing the trailer for it during the daytime when soap operas were playing and things like that. It was just upsetting parents, I guess, that were home with little kids around. I could see that being upsetting, but maybe it was the first time that people were experiencing something like this. Like it felt like it would harm you. Like, what do you guys think? I mean,
I think that the reason, because a lot of people do talk about like what Brian's talking about, how it's like, listen, To All a Good Night came out before Silent Night, Deadly Night. Christmas Evil came out before that. I know Black Christmas doesn't have a killer Santa, but it's still a Christmas horror movie. That came out before Silent Night, Deadly Night. So everyone's always like, why? Why this movie? Why was that the focus of the, like, it's evil, it's terrible, get it out? I think it's just because the way it was marketed at the time. Like, I don't think anybody knew what Christmas Evil was. You know, now by anybody, I don't mean like nobody saw it, but it wasn't, there wasn't ads for it like it was, Die Hard 2 or what, you know what I mean? It's the way they advertised it during football games and during times when kids were home and stuff. I think that's what put it in the spotlight. I think if Christmas Evil had done the same thing, I think we would have saw something similar with that.
Mm-hmm.
They went To All a Good Night, but I think these movies just kind of like came out. They weren't pushed to the masses. They didn't have like a big studio backing it and trying to get it to be this next big thing. So, I'd love to go back in time to those picket lines and just say to them, well, where were you when this, and this came out? Just to see what they'd say. Guarantee you they never heard of any of those movies. So I think that's what ended up, putting the spotlight on, is that it wasn't the first Killer Santa movie, but it was the first Killer Santa movie that a studio like TriStar Pictures got behind and were like, no, we're going to advertise the hell out of this, and we're going to put it on the Monday Night Football game, and we're going to, I think that's what got them into trouble.
Yeah.
I think with the controversy, I was very aware of it, and I thought it was misguided. Even in '84, I was just like, oh, I can't stand these picketing types, these mothers against fun movies. They just, I was so against that. And just that whole culture, that conservative culture of the early '80s, that just say no, the moral majority. And even though I was a good kid, I was not a wild kid. I was not out doing crazy things. I was just watching R-rated movies when I had a chance. That was as subversive as I was as a kid, or picking up books that were perhaps meant for adults.
Yeah.
But, being very aware of it now and how that has partly shaped its legacy, that controversy, I knew I had to lean into it with the book.
Yeah.
Dealing with the controversy and the expectation was at the forefront of my mind. In a way, that's part of the appeal of this project. This film became notorious because it was banned by, the PTA and, Moms for Morality, or what, whoever it was marching at the time. And so, of course, being considering that, I certainly did not want to provoke controversy with the book, but my approach basically was to say, oh, well, if you thought that was going to ruffle your feathers, well, I'm going to lean into it 10 times more, 100 times more, as much as I can.
Yeah.
And deliver something that really can shock again. Something that can, how do you take an audience that's seen it all and that knows the story like one of the great bedtime stories or Christmas stories, like, this Silent Night, Deadly Night is Rudolph for horror fans. We adore this thing. We watch it seasonally. And, so of course I had to really lean into that and go, how do we replicate that feeling of, I can't believe what I'm reading? Like, can that experience with the book be the same as achieve that same feeling the audiences had in '84 watching the movie and going, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that they're doing this. And I wanted the book to be permeated with that. Like, every reader who's read this thing has had the initial reaction of,
hello,
you can't write this.
Right. So is that Brian?
I'm Brian. Hi.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
I'm well. Thanks for letting me hop on for a second.
Awesome.
So,
you wanted to talk about the controversy?
Yes, I always found it because I was born after the movie came out, so I didn't really get to live through the controversy. But I grew up on horror movies as a kid. I pretty much, when Blockbuster was saying, rented every VHS as I could until it closed down. So I remember learning about the controversy as a kid. I never thought it made sense because, like I said, Christmas Evil, Too Old Good Night both came out. But also in the 70s, we got Tales from the Crypt, the movie, which had the short with the Killer Santa, which that was, I think, if I'm correct, wasn't that like well acclaimed?
Yeah.
So I always found that weird why that was okay, but then Billy was like, why is he the controversy? Right. Granted, there was no topless Linnea Quigley getting impaled onto deer antlers in that one, but
the moral majority in the early '80s, they had the microphone, they had the bullhorn. Ronald Reagan had been president for 4 years by that point, and it was an election year. And Silent Night, Deadly Night just happened to be released about a week after Reagan won his second term.
Yeah.
And he won it pretty easily. Like, there really was this conservative swell in America at the time. And it wasn't just Silent Night, Deadly Night that was put in the crosshairs. It was pop music and hard rock music. And, right around the same time, you had the PMRC and Tipper Gore and her crusade against rock music, and you had musicians like Ozzy Osbourne and Frank Zappa and Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. Suddenly they're testifying at congressional hearings because if these mothers groups, these picketer groups, these conservative moral majority groups had their way, those artists would have been not only banned but locked up.
Yeah.
Like their artistic expression was really actually in danger, at the time, due to how pervasive that conservative culture was. And, for 12 years, from 1980 to 92, we had very conservative presidents who were against everything fun. And they were the footloose types, we don't want people dancing. We don't want people watching the movies they want to watch. We don't want them listening to the music they like. But the culture was so strong that these movies got out anyway, and the music got out anyway, and the culture got out anyway. And a lot of beautiful subversive things came out of the decade. But Silent Night, Deadly Night just happened to be the one film that they got. It
didn't result in anything. It didn't result in, I think what I love about it is that it's still around 40 years later, and it's got a bigger draw now. My personal opinion is movies, songs, TV show, whatever, you shouldn't be outraged over art, any kind of expression. Of art, you just shouldn't. It's just Barbie had like a horrendous political backlash from a lot of Republicans and conservatives and everything, and they and all I kept thinking was, it's just a movie, it's just a movie, that's all it is. And I feel like the same thing with horror movies is they get such a backlash. And you're just but they're just movies, and people obviously enjoy them. I have family members that will just never understand why I like horror movies so much. And they're like, why do you like seeing people get killed and beheaded and everything? And I'm like, well, I really don't like seeing people being killed and beheaded, but I love movies where they do it because it's not real. We all know that when they call cut, everyone laughs. Like when Linnea got impaled on the antlers, when it was over, everybody probably laughed. It was that was fun. So that's kind of what I think when I see a horror movie is it's not real. Obviously real horror is upsetting. So the backlash on this, I really still don't understand it. Was it spoiling Christmas for kids? Is that what it was?
I think it's more that it always happens in politics that whenever it comes to a time when things are bad, they always use media as a scapegoat, as to be this is why. Kind of now things are bad or going on. So what do they do? There was a controversy with the Terrifier 3 teaser. Yeah. Which I'm a huge Terrifier fan, so I went to that. And the teaser doesn't show anything, but it caused controversy because there was a little girl there. He doesn't kill the little girl. It's not. They don't show anything. All the little girl does is wake up and scream Santa. But that was I
do that every day.
And then art is just being daddy art.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's real problems in the world, and so clearly, if you go to any horror convention, you see thousands of people just having fun, and it's a group of people that. A lot of horror fans that I meet that when I go to a convention, they're the nicest people. And so I don't know. Anne here is saying that I didn't know I did. Did anybody else know this? ABC News ran a 7-minute story on the scandal of what? What
the
heck? We need to look that up.
I know.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Anne, can you either hop on or just type in the chat here? What was it?
I think I'm done with what I want to talk about, so she can hop on if she'd like.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Nice talking to you. But the scandal of horror movie, oh my God, are we?
Well, I did know that Fox News recently did a story about Thanksgiving, Eli Roth Thanksgiving, with their conservative pundits, tearing it apart, saying, can you believe they're doing this and defiling our holiday? But the moment they get enough of a leeway to block and censor these films, they're not going to stop there. At the same time, they're going to take away your ability to watch these films. And you know, it's the same villains today
Yeah.
that we kind of had in the early 80s. They will take away your fun
Yeah.
if you give the conservatives too much power. That is just cut and dried. That is a fact. They'll tell you what you can enjoy and what's perverted, and they would read this book and they would say this book is filth and you can't read this and you shouldn't read this, and they'd want to burn it. You know, it's the
Yeah.
same villains, and I was
Yeah.
aware of that then, and
Yeah.
I made that relevant, you know, writing it now. That's
Yeah.
in my mind, that I know that this is going to ruffle their feathers. It's
Yeah.
really meant
Well,
to.
On
They
the
were-
back, we put,
Yeah.
you know, like my screen here is just way too white, but it says like, you know, warning, this book is shocking. And that's something we added because, well, it kind of is, but at the same time, it was part of the fun of the movie. Like Silent Night, Deadly Night, you want to see like verbiage like that. You know, it was like, it's fun to turn the book around and be like, warning, this book is shocking. You know, like that's part of the fun of like, shock me. Like that's what I want as a horror fan, like shock me. You know, don't do something like what I love about Armando is it's not gratuitous. Like you're not just going, like everything like I love about the way you're writing is everything has a purpose and a reason, and it fits, and it, you know, it's not even over the top. I don't even know the adjective for it. It's shocking, but not in a gratuitous way. And so that's, you know, anybody can write, like, who is this? Who writes this film? Somebody called Mothers from Morality Sacred. That's what I'm thinking is like, who are you to like, if you don't like something and you're like watching a movie, who are you to like go around and tell people to not go see it? Like, what are you like it's just a movie. It's just, I hope this book gets on a banned list book.
I think it's inevitable. It wasn't certainly my goal. I mean, really, my goal was to satisfy the fans who think they have seen it all and know it all. Yeah. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just they know this story, you know, so well. But can you rattle them again? Can you re-shock them again? And I think it's absolutely possible, and it's good. And I think there is a great feeling of catharsis and excitement in it that even a jaded horror fan who's seen so much intensity and gruesomeness in films can get that visceral thrill again of like, wait, you can't do that. Like, it is really fun. It's so much fun. I mean, that's been always part of the appeal of this.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that the makers of the original film ever expected the controversy or thought that they were doing something that was that transgressive.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of aware that that is the legacy of this title and what this playground is and where its strengths lie. And so I absolutely leaned into it. With the novel, and I think it was the right approach. I think, like, I haven't had a reader who hasn't told me they haven't been shocked, and that includes everybody who's worked on it, like from, you know, editors down, and just everybody has this reaction to this book that is so incredibly visceral, but nobody is saying that you shouldn't do that. Not yet. They're just saying thank you. Thank you for doing this.
I'm kind of waiting for somebody to say, how could you write such filth? Like, you know, like somebody like saying that, but I don't think, because the people buying the book, they understand it. They understand that this is the world of Silent Night, Deadly Night. I mean, you had to go there and create the story. The body count is, I'm not spoiling anything. I mean, it's like you can read, the body count is much bigger, which I loved. I mean, I think it's just lacking. I mean, the one thing about Silent Night, Deadly Night is it's a slow burn, right? And you kind of wait. I mean, I all know it's coming, but it, you know, and Friday the 13th, Halloween, the body count starts a lot earlier, but it's fun to watch that. I love the orphanage scenes. I love Mother Superior. I thought Lillian Chauvin was a fantastic actor. And again, another character I really believed. And when she's like, punishment is good, like you could see she's got the courage of her conviction. She has her faith, and she really believes she's helping these kids. You know, in the book, she's spun a little differently, but in the movie, you know, I just think she's incredible, and so it's fun to watch. It's not like you're bored to tears, like waiting for him to go on his killing spree. So yeah. So what is Kristen asking us? Armando has Turkey Day, My Bloody Valentine, and Silent Night. I'm eager to know the draw to holiday slashers. For me, there's something special about what would be a merry time turned macabre mask. Of course, that's why like, you Leprechaun. Like, come on, like, has anyone done Arbor Day? Like, let's just ruin every holiday. I think that is the fun for me. Like, how could Valentine's Day go wrong? You know, like that.
I mean, I love that I've been able to write books within holidays, and
yeah,
for me, it's kind of twofold. There's a few reasons why I think this is exciting for me personally, and kind of goes back to your formative experiences with the genre. And I think there were a lot of horror fans, young people, young people who even weren't horror fans in the early 80s who experienced these movies. They were a big part of our popular culture. I was one of these kids, and I just happened to, by luck, get to go to see the original Friday the 13th on opening night, the very first show at my local cinema. And my babysitter took me. And my mom knew. She dropped me off. She didn't care what I watched, even at 8. But I'd never seen a full horror film before. I couldn't even watch Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee films on television. Even those frightened me at 8. And yet I saw Friday the 13th on opening night, and it was shock treatment. It was horrifying to me. I was traumatized for a couple of years where I had to kind of avoid horror films, and I had nightmares. And when I was young, I didn't hate anything more than Friday the 13th. I was angry at it for scaring me so bad.
Oh my God.
I would expect to see Mrs. Voorhees at my window or at night, or she was lurking under my bed, with some poker, so it was, and then, I slowly started to get into it. And then Halloween 2 was the first one that I rented and actively wanted to kind of experience. And that became my favorite. Now that's the favorite for me that I judge everything by. But you got Friday the 13th, Halloween, and I'm experiencing these in the early 80s when these things are potent. Like, they had their hooks in me. They're part of my roots within the genre. And even though I love every subgenre of horror and want to write all kinds of books and not just holiday books, and I had my first debut book, Hoarder, was not a holiday book.
Right.
But, I have so much fun going back there. It doesn't matter which holiday, because I have strong experiences from all of them. If I look back and I think this is true for most people, I look back at all my childhood and photos, or my family photos growing up, and almost all of them are regulated to holiday experiences.
Right.
I have so many Christmas photos, and I have Thanksgiving dinner photos, and I have Halloween costume photos, and I have Easter egg hunt photos. And oddly enough, it seems like my whole childhood was based around holidays. And, that's not true, but that's what was photographed and what I remember the most.
Yeah.
And so, it becomes, and an anniversary or a holiday is something we look forward to. It's something that as a culture we gravitate toward. And if you can take that feeling of excitement on a holiday and yet drape a horror narrative that has a legendary quality and to it is the most delicious thing.
Yeah, I agree. When I first saw like Black Christmas, like a friend, that was one of the movies that had eluded me for a long time. And I actually worked in a video store, and my friend was like, "You haven't seen Black Christmas?" And I went, "Whatever," and I rented this movie, and it creeped me. I mean, and from the opening shot of him walking up that with the trellis or whatever it's called on the side of the house, and suddenly, Silent Night didn't affect me as like a creepy Christmas movie. For some reason, it felt more like a killer slasher movie, but Black Christmas, I mean, the imagery of the lights and stuff. So now whenever I'm somewhere where there's like, I have a Christmas tree and everything, I could look at it as really creepy, and I think it's fun. It's fun. It's not a bad thing. It's a really, really fun and rewarding thing for a horror fan. But, I do know people like, it's funny as you get older, people talk about like, well, once I had kids, I don't watch horror movies anymore, and it's like, I can understand that you can't have kids when you're watching, people getting beheaded and stuff like that. But and I do have friends that say I just can't watch horror movies. They're like, I just can't shake them and they're unenjoyable, and but for those of us that love it, I mean, everybody loved Thanksgiving. I mean, was it a great movie? That's up to you. But like everybody went to go see it because that's the fun of it. And I love that they're doing a part 2. Amazing.
I always find it interesting and of course it's it's your personal taste, it's your personal opinion. I'm not saying these people are wrong, but I always find it interesting the people that are like, oh, I can't watch horror movies, I just can't get into it. Just the senseless killing, whatever. And it's like, well, what kind of movies do you like? They're like, oh, I love the John Wick movies, and it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're amazing. But it's literally a guy shooting like 500 people in the field for 2 hours. That's like you're into that, but you won't watch like a horror movie. You just can't get into the
right. That's very interesting because obviously the death isn't what's bothering them, but maybe it's just the formula of like the sense of anxiety. Like you don't have that sense of anxiety when you're watching, a John Wick movie. Wes Craven said, and this is a famous quote. He said, "Horror movies don't create fear. Horror movies don't create fear; they release it." And that is the truth. If you're filled with anxiety watching a horror movie, maybe that's a sign that. Just stay with it. You know what I mean? Like watch another one and you will learn to enjoy. I mean, they're like roller coaster rides. If you've been on I love roller coaster rides. Do you guys like roller coaster rides?
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
Okay. Maybe there's a correlation.
But I love to watch videos of them.
Okay. All right. Same thing. But like, it's like you want that rush of like, oh no, and then release. And then it's also, you're safe. So I think all of those reasons, like I love being scared. And the thing is that I think as horror fans, we've seen so many horror movies that it takes a lot to get us, but there's been some really good ones lately. I'm shocked at how good some of these horror movies are. You think you've seen it all. And it's like, so, and by the way, Anne here says, how appropriate that the first R-rated movie Billy sees in the theater is Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
I guess that's partly based like on my experience because for me it was the original Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
But horror films I had to gradually learn to love, and I actually did go see the final chapter on opening weekend in the theater, even though I still kind of hated the series. And I did see part 3 in 3D in 82 as well, but I skipped it. I skipped part 2 in 81 because I was still sleeping with my stuffed animals to protect me from Betsy Palmer at night. But really late, I slept with those animals to protect me from Friday the 13th. But the final chapter was exciting in the theater, and I went with all my friends on opening weekend. And yet I was still so scared that there were a few times where I left the theater. I stood at the back with a few of my scared friends, and we ducked out after a murder going like, oh, and we would laugh. But then we would go back in. And I remember we actually got scolded by a theater staff who was saying like, well, if you're not going to sit in there and watch the movie and you're going to keep running in and out, then you shouldn't watch it. Like you're not old enough to watch it.
Right.
It's kind of like that employee doesn't realize that is part of the thrill of going to these. It's a rite of passage for young people, and you go with your friends and you dare each other to experience these movies. And Friday the 13th, the final chapter, scared the wits out of me when I saw it on opening weekend. Totally, like absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did it. Like now I can look back and go, oh, I'm so glad. And that experience is so potent. I thought that Billy should experience it too. But it also makes sense. Where does he learn to become an axe murderer? Like things don't just innately come to you like that. He actually had a trigger. And it was because his first R-rated movie just happened to be this one.
So let me ask you a question, Armando, because I think there's this ongoing debate whether horror movies are good or bad for society. The idea that somebody could go to a horror movie and then adopt the actions of a killer. And it has happened. Look it up. There is 2 articles that I remember of somebody going to see a Halloween movie and coming home and attacking like their grandmother or somebody. This is true. The last one I saw was years and years ago, but my opinion on that is that you've got to be crazy in the first place to do something like if it wasn't the movie, it would have been something else.
Right.
I'm wondering if, like, now that you've written it like that, do you think that's just because, you know, Billy's cracking is a confluence of, you know, Mother Superior, Killer Santa, you know, a bunch of different things, the song that he's hearing. Do you think it's just one more little fragment of his psyche that's just a little more piece of the puzzle that's cracking his psyche now that he's got a reference point of
he actually ultimately,
yeah,
he enjoys the experience of seeing
Yeah.
the final chapter in the book. It doesn't damage him at all.
Yeah.
And I think the book's pretty clear at explaining exactly what drives Billy to murder. I really don't think it has anything to do with the film, although there is that resemblance of he does remember how Jason did it.
right.
And he knows how to what you do with it. But it's because he becomes a murderous moralist that he, you know, he's been brainwashed.
Yeah.
He becomes he's a religious extremist in
Yeah.
the book, and it really does make sense. It's really there in the movie, but they don't deep dive into it the way I do in the book. But it's, you know, popular culture is actually something positive for him in the book. The movies and learning about the outside world, like it was worse when the orphanage wouldn't let him watch R-rated movies.
Right.
And he has to wait until he's 18, and then he experiences them once he's out on his own. And it's like a revelation, like, oh, so this is how adults act in the world. They wouldn't let me see behind the curtain.
And he's finding out that a lot of it is naughty. A lot of what he's been told, like Matt here, hey Matt, is saying movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative. Like, you know, Scream had that pinned, like nailed back in 1996. You know, yeah, I guess, you know, like it's just there, like your brain like has now seen it. And so I mean, I guess if I were to crack and start killing people, I'd be like, well, all right, how am I gonna do it? The way Michael did it or the way Jason did? You know what I mean? Like
yeah, it's the book has a whole different, you know, it really, I think, realistically approaches who Billy is, what he does, why he does it. And it's not because of loose morals. And it's not, you know, he's not killing because he's seeing bare breasts. He's not killing because he saw an R-rated movie. He's killing because of the religious abuse and indoctrination, religious indoctrination.
Yeah.
And it's because, you know, really, if you really analyze what makes Billy a killer, and all the clues are there in the movie, he's basically acting like the people who picketed the movie, the moralists who said, you should get rid of these things. Like there was actually an article in a newspaper, an American newspaper, where readers were interviewed about their reactions to this horrible thing of Silent Night, Deadly Night. It was a very slanted article by a conservative-leaning paper. And one of the people they interviewed, and it's right there in print, said, the makers of this filth should be executed. It's like, why do you want to kill an artist because you don't like what they create? And you're the one saying that you've got the morals. And, you know, that's kind of what Billy does. He falls into that, everything is bad by my judgment, and I can kill you because I have that judgment.
Yeah.
And, you know, if Billy had come 4 years later, he would have joined Operation Rescue and been the type of person who shoots an abortion doctor in the back or bombs an abortion clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it was modern day, Billy would pick up an assault rifle and he would go to a high target place. And it's because people aren't up to his ideals and he's better than them. And they're the dirty, shameful ones. Like, it really makes sense when you watch it in that context that Billy is actually adopting Mother Superior's edicts, but just adding a lethal dimension to it.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense to me. Like, and that's why kind of there's these clues in the book that the conservatives of the era of 1984 actually, in the aftermath of Billy's crime spree, support it. You know, they're like, pornography and movies and things like this are the cause. You know, and it's like, no, it's like we've seen behind the curtain. We know what makes them tick, and we know better. the abuse and religious brainwashing that turns him into a murderous moralist.
Yeah.
So yeah, the movies didn't make him, give him ideas. Like they just, it was something else entirely.
Yeah. Did you guys have you guys seen the Siskel and Ebert review of Silent Night, Deadly Night?
One of my favorites of all time.
I watch it every year. So everybody watching, go look it up on YouTube after this and watch their review. And they hated Silent Night, Deadly Night. But, I think there was a very real fear in the early 80s. I mean, this was like the mid 80s, but of like, why are these movies catching on? I mean, think about it. Say that you were like, you were like a parent or something, and you all of a sudden this barrage of movies come out where people are dying and there's pictures of blood and shish kebabs going through people's mouths, and and like I think maybe you'd be like, what's going on? What there might be this moral decline. I could see that happening. And so if you go back and watch like Friday the 13th, that's another one. Go watch the Friday the 13th, the Siskel and Ebert review. It is awesome. I could see there being a concern, but looking back now, you could say none of it has an impact. Like, yeah, I guess if all you do is sit around and watch horror movies 24/7, and maybe you got more of a problem than just like watching horror movies, but in terms of the effect that they have,
I feel attacked.
You what?
I feel attacked.
Exactly. Sorry, Armando. But you're writing this stuff, so you're more dangerous. You have a word that says naughty on your head. Like, should I be worried? But
it's tattooed too.
Wait a minute. Is there like 10 dead bodies in your place right now that just the camera can't see? Is that what's going on?
Hung by the chimney with care.
Well, cool. Well, I didn't want to go more than an hour. We don't want these things to go on and on and on. We just like to interact with Stop the Killer customers, and thank you. So we have a couple trivia questions here to kind of give away some prizes, and we won't tell you what the prize is until after, because we want to ask you what you have. And so if you'll be chatting. So what you're going to do is Nate is going to read the questions. There's just 3 about Silent Night, Deadly Night. So if you can answer the question correctly, that means you just answer it first. And so the first person to pop up with the right answer, we'll give a prize to. And it seems like some of you have the book and some of you have the games, and so we're gonna giving away books and games. So we figured we just ask you what you have, and you can tell us, and whatever you don't have, we'll give you. All right? How does that sound? All right, so get ready. And if you don't know, there's a comments and a chat section to the right of your screen, and so that's where you'll be typing your answers. So, all right, cool.
Okay, so question 1. First person to answer wins something. Something. You will find out after you win. All right, question 1. What is the name of the actor who played Grandpa in the original Silent Night, Deadly Night?
Everyone's watching the comment section.
Time's a ticking.
Oh, close, Brian. All right, you got it. Brian got it. So it's William Hare. Will Hare. And he's great in everything. Go look him up. He's been in so much stuff. Oh, there you are. That's from our Silent Night, Deadly Night game, everybody. That's in the expansion pack. So this brings me to my question. So Brian, I think you have the book, right? I just remember your name. You have the book, right? The Silent Night, Deadly Night book. Let me know if you have the game or not.
I think he has the book. Yes.
Okay, he has the book. So Brian, do you have the game? Did you get the hex deck? He was obsessed with breeding pine trees. What the heck are you talking about? I think Matt's trouble. Oh, you have the hex deck? Oh, that's right. Has anyone here played the hex deck? Just if you can let us know as well. These the hex decks are coming. We have Happy Birthday to Me coming. We're very excited. This comes in a bundle with the book. So if you buy Armando's next book, Happy Birthday to Me, it comes with this game, which you play by yourself on your birthday. So Brian, you don't have the hex deck, so I'm going to send you the hex deck as a prize for answering the question correctly. Look, Armando, we'd be great for QVC. When it's just like, I should have a little sign that says 4 left or something. I don't know. Oh my God! So what are you holding, Nate? Oh my God, you guys!
This is the original screen used axe from Silent Night, Deadly Night. This is Billy's axe. The actual
axe.
There it is.
How did you get it? Because that's so. By the way, Nate is a movie prop collector, and so he texts me this, and I forgot where I was, but I stopped in my tracks, and I was like, "What?" Anyway, so yeah, tell us how you got it.
So I got it from another collector that got it from another collector. The story of its origin originated from about a year after the movie was released. They had a screening of Silent Night, Deadly Night at a drive-in in Utah near where it was filmed. And the director, Charles Sellier Jr., was there. And afterwards, he had a van parked there, and he was having people come up, and he was signing and selling like posters, like one sheets for the movie and stuff. This is like 1985. And he also had the axe there.
Oh my God.
Showing it to people. It's my understanding there were 2 there. And the person that got this one literally just looked at it on the table and said, "Is that the axe from the movie?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "How much do you want for it?" And he said, $20. And he said, "Sold." And it rested above his in his man cave in Utah, where they filmed the movie, for about 30 years, 25 years. And then one day he sold it to somebody who sold it to somebody else who I got it from.
Wow.
Incredible. So
Lucky
Nate told
man.
me this. So when he receives it that night, we got Scott Schneid and Dennis Whitehead, who are the co-executive producers of Silent Night, Deadly Night. I texted them and said, "Hey, do you guys want to Zoom? Nate has something to show you. You won't believe it." And so I didn't tell them what it was. And so we actually recorded the Zoom. And they were like, "What's this thing you want to show us?" And, they're like hopping on at 6 o'clock at night, whatever, after dinner or whatever. And I think you like lowered it into frame. It's like, it's all dramatic. And they were shocked. They were like, "How did you get that?" And they were just blown away.
Then they gave me Robert Brian Wilson's phone number. They're like, "Just text him and tell him you want to show him something. Just tell him you know us," which I did. And 5 hours later, I'm expecting a text back. My phone's ringing. It's Robert Brian Wilson. I'm like, "What? Robert Brian Wilson's calling me?" He has no idea who I am. And I just tell him, I'm like, "I don't want to tell you what it is. I'd rather show you." He's like, "All right, we'll hop on a Zoom." Same thing. His jaw dropped. He couldn't believe it. He was like, "That's it. It's 100% it." He's like, "I recognize that exact one." And he was calling it his friend. He's like, "That was my buddy on set." He's like, "I carried it everywhere I went."
So cool. So you had the producer and they said "Yes, that looks," so they gave their stamp of, "Yep, it's authentic." And
the prop master. I tracked down the prop master and talked to him on the phone. He was like, "Yep, that's it. There were 3 total." It's like there was a metal one and 2 rubber ones. And
how heavy is it? Is it heavy like an axe? Or is it...
It's kind of heavy.
What's it made out of?
It's got that's the only part that's damaged is the bottom.
Oh, right.
But you can see the bar that runs through it to keep it straight, because it is rubber, but it's a really thick, heavy rubber.
And it's obviously not sharp at the edge.
No.
Yeah.
And the prop master actually told me on the phone. I was like, "Wonder what happened to the real axe." He's like, "I probably got that in my storage unit somewhere." I'm like, "Dude." He's like, "I probably have the sharp one somewhere."
Oh my God. That is awesome. So I can't wait to see that and hold it someday. All right. So Brian's already won. So we're going to do the next question. So Brian, don't answer this one because you already won. Don't be naughty. All right. What's the next question?
Okay.
Kind of easy, but
Question 2.
All right.
How many movies total are in the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise?
We're all watching the chat section.
Woo! There we go. First right answer.
So Anne got it right. And a bunch of people were saying 5, but it's actually 6 because there was a remake called Silent Night from Anchor Bay
Yeah.
in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And it is technically considered, a part of, not part of, I guess part of the franchise. I don't know. It was just a sort of a remake that turned into something else.
I mean, it says in the credits that it's based on, a story by Michael Hickey.
Yeah. So, Anne, I know that you have the book, so I have your address and everything, so I'm making a note to, okay, so you have the book. Do you have the hex deck? Right. David said it's with Malcolm McDowell. Yeah, it's with Malcolm McDowell. I have to, okay, Anne, I'll send you the hex deck. I've only seen it once. Have you guys seen? Do you guys remember it? Because I honestly don't remember it that much.
I saw it once.
Yeah, it was okay. So, see, like this is a good example. Silent Night, Deadly Night was made 40-something years ago, and everybody's talking about it. Everybody still loves it. That they do. The producer said there's 70+ screenings around the world every year. That doesn't happen for most movies. It just doesn't. So the fact that like nobody remembers Silent Night or we saw it once and forgot it goes to tell you like the monumental like achievement or mark that movie made. I mean, you may find flaws in it and everything, but I think it's held up really high on a pedestal for horror fans.
Yeah.
I love it. I watch it like twice a year, once during Christmas. I do like a Black Christmas and Silent Night double feature, which I'm sure a lot of us do. But
and I do understand the fans that don't even consider Silent Night to be a part of it. Technically, I guess it is because of the crediting, but as a fan, it doesn't have the same title. Like it's an abbreviated.
And I think that was the right. I think they made the right decision at the end of the day, because what basically happened was it was supposed to be a straight up remake that was right in line with the original. And then as production went on and they're working on the story and everything, it eventually got to the point where they were like, what are we even doing here? This has nothing to do with the original, with the exception of the fact that there's a killer Santa. That's it. That's the only real link that it has still. So they just dropped the Deadly Night part and decided to call it Silent Night.
Yeah.
So I think that at the end of the day was the right decision. My opinion on that movie, I think it was good for what it was. As a Silent Night, Deadly Night remake, it wasn't good because it really wasn't. But as a killer Santa movie, I mean, it was fine. I mean, it had some pretty brutal kills.
Yeah, and also, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Armando.
I was gonna say at the same time they had Train come out, not Anchor Bay, or I don't actually
know
the company, which started as a Terror Train remake, and then veered completely off into its own.
They changed the name of Train.
Yeah, they took off the terror.
Yeah.
So you have these abbreviated titles that's like, it's almost the thing, but
right,
it's not the thing. And I think the fans were kind of left like, I don't know if I'm supposed to embrace this. Like, and they would embrace it more if they did keep the original title. But it doesn't mean that they would necessarily fully accept it. But it happens.
And also, Anchor Bay did option the rights to Silent Night, Deadly Night to make that movie. So that's another very obvious strong connection, is that they intended to remake. They didn't make a movie called Silent Night that they made under the radar without Silent Night getting, the owners getting money. Like they paid a lot of money for those rights. So that's another reason why it's connected. All right. So third and final question, and then we'll wrap this up.
Last chance, everybody.
All right. So Anne and Brian, don't answer. Santa's watching.
Okay. Final question. Who is Billy's first victim in Silent Night, Deadly Night? Can I answer? I know the answer.
I know the answer too.
And you win the axe.
Oh my God, can you believe? All right. I don't know if everyone's like looking it up or what, but
Hey, whoever's first.
I know, and Brian's like, I know it.
I thought this would be one of the easier ones.
I know. All right.
Did everybody hear the question?
Yeah, so Frightbox
Oh, we
responded.
got it. Yeah, we
Oh,
got
there
it.
we go. Boom.
So yeah, so Frightbox recording. So I love your name, by the way. It's Andy. Yes. All right. Let me just write. So so Frightbox recording. And isn't that great? That's a game piece in the board game. And oh my God, you guys have to play this game. It's play the game while watching the movie and drink a little. It is like the ho ho ho, like it's the merriest Christmas you'll ever have. So Frightbox, do you have the board game? That brunette chick, Melanie says. Brunette. No, she was the second one, and that was Pamela.
Yeah.
And she says, that's Pamela, right? Armando, you're amazing. He's got like, I feel like anything I say you'll produce. Cadillac. I'm not even drinking. Okay, so Frightbox, you have the board game. All right, so I'll send you the hex deck. So it looks like it's a hex deck night. So Frightbox, why don't you do this? Email me, I'm Anthony, at stopthekillergames@gmail.com and just say, hey, I'm Frightbox. I won the hex deck, and send me your address, and I will just drop it in the mail. So it looks like hex decks were what we're giving away tonight. And just showing everyone else who's watching, you know, the hex deck, it's small. It says big, but watch. It's tiny. It fits in your hand. It's a solitaire game you play by yourself. And in this game, you play Billy. So you're standing in a toy store and you have the axe and you're wearing the costume. And you're standing right here in the middle of Iris Toys. And you hear these voices in your head. You have visions of, you know, Killer Santa and Mother Superior and Crazy Grandpa, which are these guys right here. And so you have these cards, these 60 cards that have symbols on them, and you're edge matching them to create a spread of cards. And all the instructions are here. We just launched something on the website that sort of gives you how to play. Right, there's the punish card, but you have this instructions. Very easy to play. And if you can hold your sanity together, which means you complete your spread of cards, then you win. And if you can't, and the punish and naughty cards show up before you're done, then you lose, and you go on your killing spree. But it's a lot of fun, and they're called the Hex Deck series, and we have them for Happy Birthday to Me. We also have Ghostface coming and a bunch of others. So yeah, there you are. It's a lot of fun. And actually, Armando tested one of the games. I can't say the title of it, but I sent it to him, and he had a blast. And
I play my Ghostface all the time, so
yeah, they're really fun, and they're small. And you know, the reason why we did a solitaire series is because a lot of people said, "I love board games, but I have no one to play them with." You know, and you can play our board games by yourself, by the way. But we wanted to create something sort of different that, you know, and also for Happy Birthday to Me. I mean, you play it alone on your birthday. If that's not a horror fan's, you know, if that's not fun for a horror fan, I don't know what is. While you're reading the book, come on. So, well, everyone, thank you for joining us. This is our episode 3. Armando, thanks for coming on again.
It's great talking to you, Nate and Anthony.
Absolutely.
Yay. And everybody, please send in your comments. Tag us on Instagram at Stop the Killer Games. Or it's at Stop the Killer. It's no games. It's at Stop the Killer. And to let us know what you think of the book and the games and everything. Happy holidays to everybody. And we'll be announcing our episode 4 guest shortly. So, all right, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Bye, everybody.
Merry Christmas.